Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks a lot for downloading this. And if I could be so bold as to ask a quick favor, I don't do this often, but if you have a second, do you mind, if you're an Apple Podcast consumer or you're a Spotify user, could you leave a written review and a 5-star review of this podcast? It helps others learn about it and spread the good word. We're so appreciative. And thanks a lot for choosing this show, as you do each and every day, consistently making this one of the top-performing news commentary podcasts out there in the universe of all there is to choose from these days. And I thank our sponsor now for years, John Ruhlman, who has been basically the principal sponsor of this show and has helped so many of you in this audience, most importantly. The reason I love doing business with John and the team at U.S. Medical Plan is because they really help people in this audience. I'm not just talking about people that I've heard from through email. I'm talking about people in my own life. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, my own parents. I sent my parents to John and his team when they were looking for supplemental insurance with their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. That's my senior parents, all right? I have a personal friend who had a daughter with some special health needs. He was spending tons of money a month on private health insurance for them. John got him a better plan, saved him $1,000 a month. I have colleagues that have saved hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a small business owner and you supply insurance for your employees, that's a generous thing to do. Is it really expensive? And you're thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore? Wait. Call John. Reach out to his team. They shop with 100 different private health insurers all over the country. If you're an Obamacare user, that is not getting any cheaper this year. I can already tell you it's going to go up, up, up. There are private health insurance companies out there that have much lower rates than you think and cover everything that you need. I know people assume if it's cheaper, it means less coverage. Not necessarily. Or it may be that you have the best coverage going, but you're not going to know until you reach out. Please turn to the team at usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or give them a call today, 877-410-4321. That's 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Holy cow. I'm reading the details of this Sanchez story. This is really something, folks. Hey, good morning. Welcome in to the Tuesday edition of the Stigall Show. Our telephone number, 855-STIGALL, if you want to get in here today. Looking live at Philadelphia, home base here. Philadelphia's AM 990 The Answer, our flagship, looking across the river into Philadelphia from the Camden side. 855-STIGALL. Gee, kill that thing you got going on in my ear there, if you would, please. Thank you, my friend. Mark Sanchez. The video has now surfaced of Fast Eddie. This sounded at first like poor Mark Sanchez had been attacked, and now, no, they're talking about Mark Sanchez, quarterback for half a second in Philadelphia, by the way. I met him. Actually have a photo with him and my boys, Ed. He was sober as far as I know, and I was not assaulted in any way when I met him in South Philadelphia there at the Link. But this is really not looking good. This guy's going to go for maybe a television career. Do you think he's going to see jail time?
I think so, man. Yeah, I do.
This is really bad. The family of former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez has issued a statement after he was charged with felony over a stabbing in Indianapolis over the weekend. Charged with one count of battery resulting in a serious violent injury. He initially faced multiple misdemeanors after being arrested Sunday following a late-night altercation with a 69-year-old box truck driver in downtown Indy. This has been deeply distressing for everyone involved. Mark and our family incredibly grateful for the concern, blah, blah, blah. Mark remains under medical care, blah, blah, blah. The victim filed a civil lawsuit, I bet he did, against Sanchez yesterday, filed in Marion County. The suit seeks unspecified monetary damages and says the victim suffered significant injuries to his head, jaw, and neck. You know, I don't want anybody to ever be attacked. I don't ever want to be assaulted in any way. But, Ed, if I'm going to be assaulted, let it be from a multimillionaire television host and former NFL player, right?
Yes.
Because then it's payday and I'm not driving a box truck anymore, is kind of what I'm figuring.
Yeah, someone who has a pension from an entity like the NFL. That'd be nice. Yes, that'd be helpful. if you're to get attacked, yeah.
Who do you work for, Fox? I don't remember who employed him.
I have to look.
I guess I could read further. I don't care enough to learn. Fox Sports. Yes, thank you. Here it is. I didn't know. But anyway, according to a report, the driver told police Sanchez, smelling of alcohol, approached his vehicle, attempted to climb into the cab multiple times, shoved him, and when he tried to get his cell phone from inside, the driver told authorities he pulled out pepper spray and a knife in self-defense. The pepper spray appeared to have an effect on Sanchez momentarily, but then the analyst wiped it from his face and continued approaching the victim. The driver stabbed Sanchez several times, found him flying back into the dumpster, according to court documents. After a final stab wound from the driver, Sanchez gave him a look of shock, turned around, and left the alley. The driver suffered a severe laceration to the side of his face through his left cheek. I assume that's from the knife. Sanchez told police in the hospital all he could remember was grabbing for a window. He had no clue who stabbed him or how it happened. Now, I will confess to you that I was once upon a time a pretty heavy drinker. I can also tell you that even at my drunkest, I don't remember ever being of a mind to climb into some guy's box truck and start battling him for some unknown reason. This sounds like more than just booze, Fast Eddie. I don't know. If I'm a betting man, this sounds like more than just a couple of Jack Daniel's shots.
Yeah. Do you think the guy in the box truck, maybe he was a bit of mistaken identity for someone that supplies Mark something, maybe? I don't know.
Let's ask this question. Why are we climbing into the cab of anything, no matter how drunk you are? When was the last time, no matter how drunk you were, leaving a place, you started trying to climb into a stranger's truck cab?
Yeah, never tried
I'm
that.
not saying you don't do stupid things when you're drunk, but that doesn't sound at all normal, even for drunk standards, does it?
No, I don't know of anybody jumping into somebody else's box truck. No. That's new.
So the lines or the dots you're connecting is maybe he was out shopping? Maybe? Speculating. We're speculating here. This is all alleged. We have no knowledge of anything. We're just speculating what this could be about. You think in the dark of night. Of course, this was also, we should note, in the middle of the night. So he was clearly something, he was obviously, he didn't have his faculties. He claims he doesn't remember. They say drunk, smelled of alcohol, fine. But late climbing into the cab of a truck. You think there might be perhaps an exchange might have been sought there somehow.
If I'm Mark Sanchez, I don't need to be doing any of that. I can totally get drunk inside in the broadcast. I can,
I think that's what's always, you're exactly right. It's always intrigued me. I was relatively broke when I was drinking, comparatively, certainly to an NFL star and analyst. I always thought to myself, I wouldn't drive myself anywhere. I wouldn't go get anything. If I were just hell-bent on debauchery, I'd do like Diddy did and just bring it all to me. Right? Do you need to be driving around on the interstate or climbing into box trucks? If you've got those kinds of means, you bring it all to you, don't you?
Yeah, even though Mark Sanchez wasn't, that great of a quarterback, he still had a starting job at one point, and the salary of, a backup quarterback is still, well into six figures.
And he played for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
He did well for a while, I think. He hung around for a bit. And that Fox Sports money ain't exactly paltry. I think he was probably doing all right, being paid as an analyst for Fox Sports, don't you suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. He has to be at least a millionaire in assets, of course.
Okay, so you think he sees jail time? Because the prosecutor in the case says we could get him for up to 6 years. I don't think he sees 6 years. Does he see jail time, though?
He might, yeah. I think he very well could. This is shady right now.
You know what he ought to do? He immediately ought to say he thinks he's a woman. Because that apparently gets you out of trouble. Did you see? I didn't talk about this yesterday, and I apologize. Because I told you I would keep a sharp eye on it, and I had it in my stack. I just didn't get to it yesterday. It turns out that Nicholas Roski, who is that? That's the man who got on a plane and was going to go kill Justice Kavanaugh a few years ago. They now call him Sophie Fastetti. And you remember last week when I told you that Nicholas Roski's mother went to the courts before his sentencing and said, please, 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 go lenient on my son. He thinks he's a woman. He's mentally ill. That's what drove him to become a near assassin of the Kavanaughs. So please go easy on him. And it turns out this might have worked, Ed.
Oh, okay. So, yes.
And I'm just curious now, are we going to use transgenderism as an excuse to commit crimes? Because it can't go both ways, right? It's either a mental condition that can excuse you of crimes, or it's a true biological medical fact that we almost live with and treat normally. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. I know the left likes to have it both ways, but we got to pick a lane here, right? It's either lunacy that drives you to madness and murder, or it's totally normal, and teachers and parents and school districts ought to, and doctors ought to treat it as normal, pump people full of drugs and give them surgeries to normalize it. It can only be one or the other.
Oh no! It absolutely leads to madness and murder. I'm on the side of yes. There's something mentally wrong with you. It's not an excuse to murder somebody or try to murder somebody. No.
It sounds like a Maryland judge thinks that this is an excuse, and thus you shouldn't fully penalize somebody who's an attempted assassin. A Maryland federal judge sentencing. So, and I love this. Every media outlet, I researched this yesterday after the show. I was mad I didn't get to it. But I went back and looked. Every single outlet that I could see referenced this guy, Nicholas Roski, as a woman. Sophie. Since he's been in custody, he's demanded to be called Sophie, and they've obliged. And I guess they've legally called him now Sophie, and as such now we're supposed to treat this man like he's a woman. Sophie Roski of Simi Valley, California, October 3rd, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for flying across the country to Kavanaugh's home with a gun and other weapons. Prosecutors were seeking at least 30 years to life. And he got 8 years. The attempted assassination of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh was a disgusting attack against our entire judicial system by a profoundly disturbed individual, said Pam Bondi on X. We're going to get to her in a minute. She's got some other things to deal with today, and she'd better. Roski, who pleaded guilty in April, apologized for putting Kavanaugh and his family through the incident in a 5-page handwritten note submitted to the judge September 19th. She said she had been undergoing therapy and said she realized that violence isn't the solution. Isn't that nice for her, Fastetti? She said she realized violence is not the solution, and she's awfully sorry in a long letter to the Kavanaughs. And the judge said, well, that's nice. You clearly weren't mentally well. We'll give you 8 years to chew on it instead of the 30 that you deserved. That's nice for her.
Yes,
him.
Very good, very good. I'm glad she's doing well.
So I say, I don't mean to get into anybody's business, but to the Sanchez team, maybe he was transitioning? Give it a whirl. Seems to be working out there. More in a minute. Ed was doing some research. He found out we were paying Sanchez quite a bit when he was with the Birds. $16 million for a couple of years just as a backup. That's not bad. And he hopped around a lot. So I think he made more bank than you think, Ed, Mark Sanchez. I think that box truck driver is going to be doing well for a long time.
I was way wrong about Sanchez, man. Dude, it pays to be, because he was a hot thing when the starter of the Jets. But after that, he was just a backup and made just a couple mil everywhere he went.
I mean, we wish the box truck driver all the best, sincerely. We hope he wasn't seriously hurt. But I think when it's all said and done, he'll be done driving box trucks, would be my hunch. Anyway, all the best to him. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL. Welcome in to this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks for following along. You know, we celebrated. I am sorry that I didn't formally acknowledge it. It crept right up on me yesterday. A member of the digital team said to me yesterday, hey, Stigall, did you know that you launched the Harump Society officially 3 years ago today? He said to me yesterday. October 6th, which I didn't remember the specific date, but we hit our 3-year anniversary at the Harump Society. I want to just say to you, if you are one of the founding members, and we do have a very exclusive club of founders, that I cannot thank enough. People that went in and became early buy-in foundational members who are still proud founders today and basically keep the thing subsidized and up. You know what founders are? Founders are effectively Democrats with Obamacare. They are basically keeping the entire system propped up. Were it not for founders, the entire thing would collapse. A lot like Democrats making sure that people earning six figures get subsidized health insurance now through the Affordable Care Act. That's exactly what the founders are at the Harum Society. Same model.
You need those anchors. You need those pillars. Those people in on the ground floor. Yes.
That's right. Because it all collapses if they're not there. So to my founders, thank you. You were there at the very beginning. Some of you are 3-year institutionalists, but grateful to you. And in fact, I'll be sending you a little token of my appreciation, as I like to do every year if you're a founder at the Harum Society. So go check it out. But you don't have to be a founder by any means. You can drop by and check it out each week, 3 times a week. I kind of took everybody's temperature. Do you? And I was really glad that the majority of you I asked, do you like it just 3 times a week? And most of you said yes. There were a couple that said, oh, I'd love it 5 days a week, but they recognize it's not like I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. They said, I think three times a week's effective. I said, okay, thank you. Because I'm going to need a lot more of that founder cash if I'm going to start hiring staff. I do that all by myself. So anyway, check it out. Also, social media, all of it's at chrisstigall.com, as well as the podcast to get caught up. I hope that you do. Okay, it's getting bad enough now. This guy in Virginia, who I don't spend a lot of time talking about too micro stuff inside a particular state, because I understand that if you live in Utah, you may not be particularly interested in an election in Virginia, unless the guy running for the top cop in the state is threatening to murder his colleagues. There seems to be a running theme with Democrats. Have you noticed this? I haven't checked Mark Sanchez's voter registry, but they very stabby, very aggressive, constantly wanting to murder, slaughter, and assassinate. And then they want to claim mental deficiency because, they're trans or whatever. But anyway, this guy, Jay Jones, we talked about him yesterday. This from the Post-Millennial. Jay Jones, Democrat candidate for Virginia Attorney General, come under fire for resurfaced text messages in which he joked about murdering the former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert and hoped that his children died. Has been revealed to have said in 2020 that if a few police officers died, they'd also stop killing people. So they found more. Speaking with the Virginia Scope, GOP House Delegate Carrie Conyer recounted the text messages she received in 2022 from Jones. In the chain, Jones texted Conyer at one point, yes, I've told you this before, only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Conyer was asked about the message and what Jones was referring to when he said, I've told you this before. Conyer said that it went back to phone calls the two of them had in 2020 about removing qualified immunity protections for law enforcement. She told the outlet, we had a pretty heated conversation about public policy and pain involving qualified immunity. And then finally said, I believe that people will get killed, police officers will get killed, and he said, well, maybe if a few of them died, they will move on. Not shooting people, not killing people. It's getting so bad that even the Morning Joe guys are calling on this guy to stand down. Yeah, you know it's bad when guys like Morning Joe and Mika and the team over there at MSNBC say, hey, you might want to hang it up out there in Virginia, this Jay Jones guy. Give me number 67 here, if you would, please, Pop-Up Paulie. Jay Jones, this is the top cop candidate for the Democrats who regularly says, you know what we need is some good old-fashioned murders of Republicans and cops, and then maybe things would settle down. He's been caught in text messages saying as much, and it's getting I guess we finally hit a line for the left, and Jay Jones is it. Not Mad Manny in New York, mind you. By the way, they're trying to make the case to get rid of him. Some Democrats are trying to get rid of him. Cuomo was out doing the media tour yesterday trying to convince people, don't hire the socialist. I don't think that's going to work out for Cuomo. But it does turn out if you threaten to murder cops, that might be a line, maybe, finally for Democrats. Here's the Morning Joe crew.
For text messages, horrible. I didn't want to read them out loud. I'm wondering how the text messages came to light.
Deeply disturbing messages that have been swiftly condemned across the political aisle. The Republicans have tried to tie this to the Congresswoman Spanberger, the gubernatorial candidate. She did very quickly denounce them. But it's unclear whether this Attorney General candidate will stay in the race. I think there's a growing sense that he probably should not. We heard President Trump last night. But even some Democratic leaders, John Hayward, have started to say, like, look, this is inappropriate. You can't, and especially at a time right now with such concern about violent rhetoric and political violence.
Who says that?
Yeah, that this is just way beyond the line.
I would say, not to be too much on the high horse. It's wildly inappropriate under any circumstances today, tomorrow, 10 years ago, 6 months ago. I think the pressure is going to be on Spanberger and for the party to ask this candidate to just quit the race, because just both, it's the right thing. And also the political splashback. You don't want to mess with this right now.
Who says that?
I think the right thing to do is basically this guy should do everyone a favor and step out of the race.
Yeah.
But what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't? And he shows no signs of it. And I would guess if this is getting as tight as some say between Winsome Sears and Spanberger for the gubernatorial race in Virginia, you're going to see Democrats take this guy down, because he could well be the guy that Spanberger has to carry around on her back. And she's going to have to continue to explain. Well, she denounced the comments, Stigall. Yeah, but when you have the Nerd Prom King and Queen show over there on MSNBC, the Coffee Klatch, Joe and Mika, and their Vanity Fair posters and their photo shoots, when you have those two saying, oh boy, who says that? Why would you go that far? Now you know you're sunk, I think. We'll see. These candidates on the Democrat side, they don't seem apologetic of much these days. Mad Manny leaning into his socialism. This is interesting. Cuomo over at The View, he went over to the hens of The View for a little comfort. That didn't. He's trying to make the case that if Mad Manny did. Now, this will be even more problematic. You got texts from a guy that says he wants to kill cops, or he wants to see cops dead, or he wants to see Republicans dead. Even for a good number of Democrats, that might be too far. Not even most, sadly, but a good number are still willing, like you just heard the Nerd Prom King and Queen show. Oh, who says that? That's bad. This is a bad look. He needs to go. When it comes to straight-up Marxist, authoritarian, socialist kind of tendencies, just take over the government wholesale, run the grocery stores, run the hotels, run housing, rent control. Democrats are loving up on this Mad Manny guy, who's probably going to win by double digits going away. Cuomo has shown up trying to take the reins back. Ed, do you think this is going to work? Because I, without even having seen this or listened to the hens at The View, we already know they're in love with him. They've already got a crush on him. He's the dreamboat. I think there are a number of people that think he's quite handsome. They're kind of taken with him. You know, Marxism sold by somebody who doesn't have a big fat gut, I guess, gets the left excited, particularly the women. Leftist women are very excited about the Marxists. And the assassins.
Assassins. Rent control has always been a big thing. So, if Mad Manny's promising that has always been huge among leftists, especially the most progressive of the leftists. That's a big Working Families Party initiative, is rent control. So, Chris, I think he runs away with it. I think it's too late. He's got the money. Yeah. He's got the credentials of a progressive. He hasn't done anything other than been entitled his entire life. So, and
I have to tell you, I think I incorrectly assigned him wearing artificial hair. I think that is his hair upon further review. I've seen some new angles. At once upon a time, I thought he was like one of those vain guys who didn't want to let go of the fact that he was balding. I think Mad Manny I think he still has his own hair.
Wow. Okay.
So I think I'm going to have to get closer. But upon further review and a couple of different angles, I threw it to the boys in New York for review. They are now telling me that I might have been in error suggesting he wears a toque.
Oh, I didn't know that he wore a toque, but I thought maybe you identified the surgical procedure to
the plugs.
Yeah, to add the hair.
I'll continue to analyze it because I know you all care.
Yep.
But in the meantime, Andrew Cuomo goes over there to the hens on The View trying to convince them, you don't want this guy. If this guy wins, and in some way he's not wrong. From a political point of view, he's not wrong. You know, there are people on the Republican side that say, if Mad Manny becomes the new mayor of New York, we should just let him go. Carte blanche. Let him do all of the authoritarian, rent control, government controlled grocery stores, social experiments, socialist experiments, Marxist stuff that he wants to do. Let him do it. And watch him fall flat on his face. And watch how New York falls into further chaos. All of his lenient to non-existent law enforcement tendencies. Just let it become Gotham on steroids. And the theory from some Republicans is it'll get bad enough, Ed, that eventually people will wake up and say, oh, we don't want that anymore. And then they'll elect a Rudy Giuliani in the 90s who will come in and like a phoenix rise from the ashes and clean up the city. Do you think there's something to that as a strategy politically?
I understand the strategy. I don't think it works anymore. I think that there is a serious progressive wing to the Democrat Party that's just getting bigger. It doesn't have the majority yet of the party, but it's just getting that big, and you can't ignore it. You have to be on board with the assassinations. You have to be on board with the most leftist of the left. It's got to be done. That's what they're doing.
All right, here's Cuomo pleading with the hens at The View and the ladies who watch him, whoever they are, I guess New Yorkers specifically, obviously. Please don't elect this guy because Democrats he's going to take Democrats with him in number 68.
He wants Mondami. 2 reasons. One, going into the midterms, he will take a picture of Mondami, run around the country and say, here's what happened to the Democrats. Mm-hmm. They are now communists. They hate the police. They legalize prostitution, legalize drugs. Mm-hmm. They want to elect this Democrat. No experience whatsoever. Being mayor of New York would be his first real job. Okay?
And that'll send the national troops in because of the crime rate.
Second move, it's good for Donald Trump because it's the excuse he needs to take over New York, which he said he will do. He said, if they elect this person, then I, Donald Trump, am going to have to step in, take over New York to protect the good people of New York.
So don't let the communists take over New York, because if he does, Donald Trump might relinquish the communist takeover of New York. You follow that? That was effectively what those hens all sat around and nodded with Cuomo. Hey, we can't elect this guy because he's going to wreck New York, and if he wrecks New York, Trump will come in and try to fix it, and we can't have Trump running New York. That was the logic there, and the hens were nodding in agreement. So, look, you have to convince the Democrat Party, particularly in New York City, that his way offers less hope for the future of New Yorkers than the typical Democrats do. The Democrats suck so bad, and they have so failed at making anyone's lives better, that they have now been driven into the arms of socialism and authoritarianism. They want cradle-to-grave government. The proud people, the proud city of New York, and I'm not talking about this audience, obviously, those of you that listen to us on The Answer in New York, notwithstanding, the sad vast majority of New Yorkers now believe, if I can't make it here, I can't make it anywhere. It's no longer up to me, New York, New York. We can change the classic Sinatra song. Everyone's down on their luck in New York. Crime-ridden, desperate, no one can afford it. No one dares try to hang up a shingle and start their own business. People that are successful have fled it. The only people left are broke or going broke and don't really feel like they have many options left. So along comes a guy and promises cradle-to-grave entitlements. Sounds pretty good when you're desperate. The same stories for our friends in California, largely. Now, a lot of people in California still have the means, maybe tied up in real estate, maybe not cash flow necessarily, but they've got the means because of where they live geographically that they, maybe they don't want to leave it just yet. I know it's beautiful there and all of that sort of thing, but will they ever turn the page on this and go a different direction as they did in the 90s with Giuliani? Some people say it's going to take a Mad Manny to get elected to do it. Cuomo is sounding the alarm here. Meanwhile, the Shoney's big boy in Chicago, J.B. Pritzker, is out there telling people that Trump is making it up. It's not so bad in Chicago. There's no need for troops to be sent there. And as such, from two different stories today, Chicago is now establishing ice-free zones. This from the Fox affiliate in Chicago. Brendan Johnson, yesterday signing an executive order creating ice-free zones across Chicago, limiting the ability of federal immigration agents to use city property and private businesses as staging areas for enforcement actions. The order covers schools, libraries, parks, and other city-owned spaces and allows private establishments to voluntarily participate in a citywide network that protects residents from ICE operations without a valid warrant. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney Office in Northern District of Illinois charged a 37-year-old guy named Juan Espinoza Martinez, an alleged gang leader in Chicago, the gang called the Latin Kings. Now remember, the Shoney's big boy, the governor of Illinois, says there is no violence, there is no trouble. Trump is making it all up. We don't need the National Guard here because Chicago's in good shape, it's fine. Federal officers on Monday arrested a suspected Chicago gang leader who offered to pay $10,000 to anyone who killed a Customs and Border Patrol officer involved in Operation Midway Blitz. Gang members are offering bounties on federal officers, while the mayor of Chicago is trying to forbid federal officials, federal law enforcement, and as well as the National Guard from staging on any city property. We'll see how this shakes out, but my money is still on Trump. They're doing anything they can, trying to make it stick. Washington, D.C. still in the middle of a shutdown here. Are we getting closer? I got a very angry email this morning, not at me for once, thankfully. It's getting rocky out there for a minute, looking at you live on the Salem News Channel this morning. If you don't have the app, grab it. You can watch what I watch on the Salem News Channel app. It's free. D.C. there. Beautiful sunrise coming up. Bobby emailed. He said, here comes the cave. Johnson said he's willing to negotiate Obamacare subsidies to end the shutdown. That means the gutless eunuchs are about to hand Schumer and Jeffries everything they want as usual. Republicans will never learn to play by the Democrats' rules and use the power. Bunch of freaking wimps and losers who don't have their sack or the nads it comes with. When it counts, we get Mr. Rogers when we need Mr. T. We will lose 2026. Look, I don't know. I've not heard what Bobby heard out there. Did you hear that Johnson said he's willing to sit down and compromise on subsidies? If he did, I'm not saying Bobby's wrong. I hadn't heard that yet. Ed, did he? I missed it if he did.
No, I don't believe so. No, I don't think I heard that.
Here's what Caroline Levitt had to say yesterday, number 70 on the shutdown.
The Democrats' current position is that the only way the American government can reopen is if illegal aliens can get free health care. Don't take my word for it, just look at what's inside of the Democrats' proposal to reopen the government. Their funding proposal would result in nearly $200 billion spent on health care for illegal aliens and other non-citizens over the next decade. To put this in perspective, $200 billion is enough money to fund the entire children's health insurance program, which provides health insurance to low-income children and women. Under the Democrats' proposal, the millions of illegal aliens who improperly were granted asylum and paroled under the Biden administration would once again be allowed to receive Medicaid benefits. It does not end there. The Democrat proposal would also require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than it does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. The Democrat Party has unfortunately...
Yeah, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. They have prioritized illegals over American citizens. That is the message from the White House yesterday. So if Johnson's changed his tune, that's news to me. The White House has not moved off of it yet. Meanwhile, more than two-thirds of Americans oppose the government shutdown as it stretches into its sixth day, reports The Hill. Not a surprise. I mean, I don't know most people. They say 53% blame Republicans, 47% blame Democrats. 30% say they support a shutdown. Well, I think the 30% that support a shutdown know that Russ Vought's going to take a hatchet to the government bloat here soon, and so probably that 30% are counting on some layoffs. But look, the fact of the matter is, here's what's going to start happening soon. TSA guys are going to start walking off the job and calling in sick, Ed, and then flights, which we're already hearing, flights into airports serving New York, Denver, and L.A. were delayed on Monday night because of shortages of air traffic controllers. And then the TSA types. I mean, I got a flight here in a couple of weeks. I had relatives last night who were telling me they're thinking about flying on Thanksgiving because of this. I don't think this is going to go to Thanksgiving, by the way. But look, if you're going to fly here in the next days or week, might reconsider, Ed. You know what I'm saying? And then that starts to get uncomfortable for everybody. And then one wonders where the political capital is being held at that point, with the Republicans or Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cave at all on this, though. You gotta, like, the Democrats have ridden it out every single time, right?
Yep, they have.
You gotta. Sorry.
I think Republicans continue to explain, we want to keep everything open, we want to pay for everything, they want to pay for illegals. All they have to do is say we're going to keep paying for everything as we always did. I think that's the consistent message, that's the safe and smart message. I think most everybody understands it. If it's a jump ball, you can assume it's going to the Republicans' favor. Democrats, if they found favor for Democrats or they could honestly cheer Democrats to this thing, the media would be. They know the Democrats are holding the losing hand. That's in my view. Anyway, let's go to Michigan. Is Steve with us in Michigan? He wanted to comment on the shutdown. Steve-O, good morning. Welcome in.
Hi. I wasn't going to call. I don't want to make a nuisance, but I think you got a great show.
Hey, listen, first of all, Steve, given the last couple of weeks we've had, never a nuisance and always welcome if you want to call and compliment. Believe you me, I'll take it every time.
No, you do. You got a great demeanor. We love you. I love the fact you're keeping Rush alive on Fridays. But I wanted to ask you, I'm reading the American Thinker today, which I kind of like, and there was a guy, Mike Robertson, that wrote an article. He says, and, everybody we're hearing in the media, the Dems are in disarray, but what he pointed out was that this is calculated, that they keep this shutdown going to cut off the funds to the ICE enforcement because Trump has made such tremendous strides locking up, just like this gangbanger that they just locked up. I mean, they're locking these bums up, but I'm wondering if this is the tactic and that the GOP's got to, who's ever got the stones to do it, like your previous email said, stand strong because they're showing.
So you would counsel, Steve, just to be clear, Steve, you want Republicans to hang tough here. Don't buckle just because people's flights start getting delayed or whatever.
Well, heavens, yes, and they need to do this. This is the Democrat Party is showing they would rather go with criminals and illegal aliens than protect the people, even the minorities in the inner cities. And I don't know why they're not waking up. And I wish Trump would start doing the enforcement to really crack down. This is insurrection. He has that right. And number two, start going after these judges. Johnson needs to go after these judges and close these courts. And, the Constitution says they hold their office for good behavior. This is not good behavior, what they're doing. But what I'm saying is the Dems are united. They want to take the money away from the feds to knock the enforcement because up to this
Got it. No, I read you loud and clear, Steve. It's a worthwhile thought. I don't think Trump would, I think he'd call it essential spending. Probably not going to let that dry up, but appreciate the thought. Thanks for the call and the nice words. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has two brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation and if they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got two dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office. That will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Good to be with you, folks. Welcome in on this Tuesday edition. Live look at Miami. We're watching you on the Salem News Channel this morning, Miami. That's going to be the site of the brand new President Trump Library, Miami, Florida. Do you like that, Ed, that he's chosen? I was a little surprised that Miami was the choice. Not that it was Florida, but that it was specifically Miami. Did that surprise you?
It did, only because, Chris, we're about to see the fall of New York. I really thought that maybe, as like a last-ditch shot at preserving Western civilization, in a place like New York, a place as great as New York once was. I thought maybe he put it there. So I'm actually shocked at Florida altogether.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't think Trump would ever reward, he fled New York. He no longer made that his home. He hates what happened to it. I don't think he'd want to reward New York with although he does still keep, obviously the Trump business and presence there. Yeah, interesting. Although, I think it makes total sense to him in that he's sort of planting his flag. After decades of losing Miami and that part of Florida, Trump surges back and wins it in a handy way. And so I think I think that's sort of his lasting legacy. This is what we did here, and this is how big and important my presidency and my victory was. I'm planting my flag here, a place where Republicans couldn't win for decades, and I did it. So anyway, good to have you, Miami. Thanks for listening throughout the great state of Florida and all over the country on our hundreds of affiliates. We're thrilled to have you on the Salem News Channel, or if you're listening on the radio today, thank you, however you get here. The podcast as well, the Harumph Society, social media, it's all at chrisstigall.com. That's Stigall. All right, did you hear yesterday about Operation Arctic Frost? If you didn't, you need to know about it. It's hard for me to be surprised at this. It's hard for me to even be outraged at this, simply because we know all this already. We know their authoritarian tendencies. We know the abuses, Obama and Biden. I've laid them out here for years, well before I knew a lot of you in this audience. I know we just started this nationally syndicated show in January, but we've been chronicling it on my show for years prior to this. Here's some of it. Number 64, sort of the truncated version. Chuck Grassley in the presser yesterday rolling out what we know about what happened with Arctic frost.
Solicitation of these telephone records, which I think emphasizes the political weaponization that was behind all this effort. And we're still getting more information. But we've released some records today.
We wouldn't know about the list of 100 Republican entities that were targeted by Jack Smith's Arctic Frost investigation. I don't think we know about this as well. So we need whistleblowers. I think Dan Bongino and other folks in the FBI, they don't know where all the records are hidden. They still don't. They're not necessarily getting 100% cooperation. But this is outrageous, what has happened. I just want to give you a timeline of this. I think you've already got the FBI sheet that shows the number of members of Congress.
So just for the sake of time, specific reasons for the FBI spying on members of Congress, Republicans, not entirely clear, reports the New York Post. The document revealing the spy effort recently turned over to lawmakers and the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, who you just heard from there. Based on the evidence to date, Arctic frost and related weaponization by federal law enforcement under Biden was arguably worse than Watergate. Grassley said, "What I've uncovered today is disturbing and outrageous political conduct by the Biden FBI. The FBI's actions were unconstitutional breach, and Attorney General Bondi and Patel of the FBI need to hold accountable those involved in this serious wrongdoing." Of course they do. Let's define authoritarianism for a minute. This is authoritarianism at its core. The left loves to use this term, authoritarianism. This is what this is. Authoritarianism is the consolidation of power in the hands of ruling elite, leaders and their bureaucrat allies. Suppressing dissent, undermining freedom, turning public institutions into weapons, targeting political rivals. And it's often cloaked in rhetoric about safeguarding the public good or whatever. Really what it does is erodes democratic norms. Through coercion, facts get twisted, opponents are smeared as threats, accountability is reserved only for political enemies. That's what we witnessed throughout Biden and Obama before it. Really an extension of Obama, Biden was. Now, fascism, by definition, what is this? It's always important to stop and define fascism. In Mussolini's own words, that is, quote, the merger of state and corporate power. A corporatist system in which government directs private enterprise to enforce ideological conformity, stifling discourse, any opinions, manipulating information flow, to maintain total control at all times. This is not ancient history, I'm sorry to say. This is Democrats in their natural state today. And we have proof, again yesterday, and limitless proof now, it seems, of their fascist power plays through just the recent years. X, formerly known as Twitter, and the Twitter files during the COVID era revealed that the Biden White House officials repeatedly pressured Twitter, for instance, as well as Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, to suppress your posts, my posts, any political posts questioning the efficacy of the COVID lockdowns and shots, which now they don't even recommend anymore at the CDC. At the time, Biden wanted that removed and throttled millions of accounts in a coordinated assault on your speech and debate on something that is now settled. Didn't work. It wasn't voluntary moderation. It was state-orchestrated censorship by government and corporate proxies. Internal emails show executives at these companies yielding to the demands under threat. I've played the montage of them admitting as much. Social media companies have admitted on the tapes we play. The blatant power grab of Biden in 2021, ramming through shot mandates, using the Labor Department to do it. Over 100 million Americans were targeted. Federal employees, contractors, healthcare workers, staff at companies with 100 or more workers, forcing shots and weekly tests under threat of firing, all via executive fiat, no vote from Congress. And even though the Supreme Court stepped in and said that was unconstitutional ultimately, this was a coercive blitzkrieg. And it exposed Biden and Obama before him, they're all one part of the same tree, their fascist bent, all in the name of safety. Now, in the same vein, 51 former intelligence officials prompted by the Biden administration issuing a letter branding the New York Post's Hunter Biden laptop story Russian disinformation, just days after its release in October of 2020. That fueled more social media blackouts that hid evidence of serious crimes for voters that would have changed the outcome of that election, by the way. Declassified records reveal CIA contractors colluded directly with the campaign to craft a narrative. At the same time, FBI agents authenticated that laptop months earlier, warning platforms of Russian hack and leak operations to preempt the coverage. Classic election interference again by Democrat deep state actors. Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign funneled over $1 million. You know the backstory on this one. I'm not going to relitigate it all. The Steele dossier. She paid for a setup that the FBI sadly used to launch Crossfire Hurricane. Take warrants on, secure warrants, propel 2 impeachments based on something Hillary Clinton paid to manufacture. And despite all of the lies in that thing, and later completely debunked as lies, that hoax consumed years of investigations and media lies and taxpayer dollars, all to sabotage a political adversary. And now yesterday we have special counsel Jack Smith, appointed by Merrick Garland, Biden's AG, subpoenaing phone records from at least 8 Republican senators, including Lindsey Graham, Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, Ron Johnson, Tommy Tuberville, this Operation Arctic Frost Probe in 2020, morphing into the J6 case against Donald Trump. This was a $50 million taxpayer operation. Your money paid for this, tracking calls, locations, and contacts of nearly 100 different Trump allies. And the FBI buried it under prohibited access. And you just saw Chuck Grassley. He's the one that declassified all this, prompting a new investigation. FBI Director Patel, now vowing accountability. Dan Bongino, decrying this a disgrace, vowing accountability. The surveillance of lawmakers there should be. These are not isolated errors, folks, as you understand. They're a blueprint of the fusion of true fascism and authoritarianism. Government hijacking of corporations and our intelligence agencies to rig elections, bury scandals, spy on Congress, proving Democrats, it is actually Democrats acting as the very thing they assert President Trump is. What all of this proves, and this latest exposed fraud proves, Democrats are the natural authoritarians. Democrats are the fascists. And we know that based on everything I just laid out If you didn't know those things, now you do. And I hope you'll hit rewind and review the tape if you don't. Spread the word. Authoritarianism and fascism is why we're here today. It's why President Trump is the president and Republicans are in control of Congress. More in a minute. Boy, now, for my money, that's just some of the prettiest country you're going to see up there in Maine. I do love it up there in Maine. Got a couple of people that call us every now and again from Maine. Covering all 50 states. Somewhere in the country, in all 50 states, you might be listening to this show on a great radio affiliate. We're glad that you're here. Or maybe you're watching on the Salem News Channel and watching the sun come up on Peaks Island, Maine. Beautiful. I do love that place. I must say, in fact, it was a summer I was summarily tossed out the door of a former employer. And I told my wife, I said, we've never taken the drive up into the upper Northeast. We've never done that. I said, now if we're going to do it, it's as good a time as any. I'm unemployed, so we hopped in the car and we did the whole thing. At Vermont and the whole, we stopped in Boston and went to a Red Sox game, which I'd never done, drove up into Maine. I highly recommend it if you get the opportunity. I'm struck at the number of people that live in the East and don't drive north. Do the leafer thing and all of that.
Oh no, it's beautiful.
You ever done that?
No, I mean hey, like what God gave us in the northeast of this country is amazing. It's a shame the people are crazy with their politics. Not everybody, of course, but
yeah, Mainers are still a bit ruggedly independent. They're not total lunatics in Maine. God bless them. And actually, Vermont, New Hampshire, there is some normalcy. There is. It's just like every place else, the blue cities. Anyway. 855 Stigall is how you reach us today. Look, Eddie was lamenting during the break, and I can't say I disagree with him. They're not going to do anything, he said. Stigall, these Republicans, they hold a press conference, and they tell us now about Arctic frost. Are they going to do anything? I'd love to tell you they will. Again, it's in Pam Bondi's hands. And we know that President Trump got very irritated with her publicly, then ended up taking down the post on Truth Social because of it. We know that there's been sort of an internecine battle, we think, between people like Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and Dan Bongino. Reading here from Paul Sperry on X, FBI sources say Christopher Wray had to sign off on the spying of GOP senators, along with Biden's AG Garland. Since the investigation involved elected officials, it required their approval. Also, a one-page predication is extremely rare. So we have all the facts. All that's missing are the indictments. So paging Pam Bondi. What we don't want now is to see Pam talking about this on Fox. We need to see indictments. James Comey, so far, the only indictment. There are obviously far more. There's far more going on here than just Comey. I think now, given what we've learned here, one could think Chris Wray was certainly involved in this. Surveilling sitting Republican senators? Look, if that doesn't chill you, if what I just laid out a minute ago doesn't chill you, that we were all forced to take a shot as a condition of our work through the federal government. This is why, when John Kasich, when we start the week with Johnny Pancakes going on MSNBC saying, I'm very concerned because, this tit-for-tat business, if Trump does it, someday the Republicans are going to lose and someday the Democrats are going to be in charge. And, oh, boy, I'm scared what will happen if Democrats take over. You're scared what will happen if? Hey, John. Hey, anybody not paying attention. You're scared what would happen if? We're here because it happened. I just laid it out. The expectation from the voter is there will now be consequences. The expectation from the voter is the DOJ, the Attorney General, will now move to prosecute and hold these people accountable. It's why we had an election last year that President Trump won, going away. We want accountability. President Trump is enacting accountability across the country, trying to get control of these lawless cities. He's doing everything he can within his executive authority, and it is being challenged in every court all over the country, ultimately going to be decided by the Supreme Court. President Trump can't do all this alone. He shouldn't be expected to do it all alone. He needs help. He needs Republicans' help in Congress. He needs Pam Bondi's help enforcing the law. And he gets, I understand him. I do completely. On this point, I don't know the job. I don't pretend to know him personally, but I understand how he must feel. He has counsel in his ear giving him every possible alternative option into how to enforce this stuff himself. And I think after a while he says to himself, am I going to get any assistance here? Good to be with you. So glad you chose us. ChrisStigall.com for all things related to the show. Whether you want to help us with our IFCJ campaign, our International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, this being October 7th, if you, like me, are deeply concerned about the future, particularly in the Middle East, particularly with our friends in Israel, and by the way, not just Israel, not just Jews, but also Christians and the work they do, IFCJ does the work that so many others won't do. They go into some of the ugliest places, and they do battle with some of the worst. And by battle, I mean not maybe physical, but certainly there are people that are constantly trying to stand in their way. And the anti-Semitic hate that's happening right now all around the world as we're marking the second anniversary of the brutal mass killings of Hamas descending across southern Israel and murdering Jews and taking hostages. Now, 2 years later, still mourning the losses and trying to rebuild their lives, new threats and enemies, constant. And we're seeing it not just there, but of course in Nigeria too. Look, with the help of men and women just like you, Israel continues to stand tall. And so today, on October 7th, specifically today, I partner with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews to let you know that this audience, just so you know, and so they know, I believe people in this audience stand with Israel too. And you can tell the people of Israel that you stand with them by supporting the fellowship today. You go to ChrisStigall.com, and right at the top of my website is a banner. So again, go to Chris, S-T-I-G-A-L-L, ChrisStigall.com, banner right there. Make a gift of $25 or whatever you can to support IFCJ. Or you can phone in the gift. And if that's easier for you, jot this number down. It's 800-982-8811. 800-982-8811. $25 rushes a food box to a person in need in Israel, but your generous gift in any amount also supports building more bomb shelters and other life-saving security projects of the fellowship. Once again, jot this number down. Any amount you can give would be so appreciative. We'd be so appreciative if you'd help out at 800-982-8811. Again, ChrisStigall.com, the banner at the very top of my website. Hope you'll give. Give generously and help our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now more than ever on this second anniversary, we need to send the message that we stand with them because there's an awful lot of ugliness, frankly, and hate, and I've seen it. I'll tell you about it a little later in the show. Yesterday, particularly, I saw some of the ugliest stuff I've ever seen online directed at Israel and Jewish people. And it's a confusing, murky time, particularly for people that might spend a lot of time on social media. So IFCJ is a tremendous organization, and you can go to ChrisStigall.com and give by clicking on that banner or call 800-982-8811. Okay. Let's turn to our friend Mark Weaver, and he is one of the very best when it comes to law enforcement, the Department of Justice. He literally worked there for a time as their spokesperson. He understands the law like the back of his hand. He authored a wonderful book called A Wordsmith's Work, which you can get on Amazon. I hope that you do. And he's still a practicing attorney and teaches and knows constitutional law very, very well. So, Mark, I kind of laid it out earlier. We've gone through this. You and I have talked now for years about the authoritarianism of the Biden administration, the weaponization of our institutions against their political foes. This latest Arctic frost is really no different. It's just another chapter.
Good morning. It's troubling. I remember talking about Arctic frost on your program a few weeks back, several weeks back. It is stunning to me, as someone who worked at the Justice Department, as someone who's been a prosecutor at the state level for many years. It is a basic violation of our civics and our basic republic for one branch of government, in this case, Joe Biden's executive branch, to use his law enforcement authority to essentially spy on another branch of government. That's the only way we can describe this. All of the things that were described about Richard Nixon during Watergate are happening in a much bigger way now. And of course, Watergate shaped the country and rewrote American history for decades, but we're not seeing that response in regard to Arctic frost, even though I think it's much worse than Watergate ever was.
We're in a perilous time, of course, because now we know that there are Democrats that are calling for open assassination. I mean, I guess when you're driven to a place where you say the people that hold a different political view than me deserve to die, what's a little spying, right?
Well, everyone has played the game of, boy, if I could have stopped Hitler before he did all the killings, wouldn't I have been a hero? When you label your American enemy a fascist or Hitler, it gives you a permission slip to do whatever you have to. And that clearly was on display with Joe Biden, who in a speech from Philadelphia in front of Independence Hall essentially called half the country dangerous people who shouldn't be trusted and who they elect. And of course, we know he was targeting not just Donald Trump, but his supporters. I don't think I've ever said this on the air before, but one of my clients in Pennsylvania, somebody who's a friend who I advise as a lawyer, had a knock on this person's door from an FBI agent because this person was active in the effort to help Donald Trump win the state of Pennsylvania. And I asked that FBI person to contact me so I could see what was up. The FBI agent told me that he was a bomb tech, that so many different regular FBI agents were busy out knocking on the doors of Republicans who tried to help elect Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, that they had reached down into the bomb squad and pulled some people out to go out and knock on more doors. That's how far away it's gotten from the rule of law.
How about 200 some FBI agents in the crowd on January 6th, 2020? What does that say to you?
Well, that's a problem, and also FBI leaders testifying under oath in front of Congress that it didn't happen. That's lying to Congress. That's perjury. All of this is a problem. The FBI, remember, let's go back to our founding. Under the 10th Amendment, most of the power is supposed to be with the states. The federal government has enumerated powers, limited numbered powers. And so the FBI, I'm glad it's there. I worked with them when I was at the Justice Department. It's a wonderful agency. But when it gets expanded and overused, that's when you have federal government power out of sync with what the founders intended.
Do we have too many agents? Has the agency grown too big? I mean, what can be, fundamentally, I think everybody's mindful of this ticking clock in the back of our minds. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, President Trump, midterms next year. Everyone's wondering, how much time do we have? Can you correct a cancer that has metastasized like this inside something as vast as the DOJ?
Well, history tells us that in the 1970s, the CIA was well out of control, spying domestically and abroad in ways that were way outside its legal charter. So there was a commission out of the Senate led by Senator Frank Church from Idaho called the Church Committee, and it looked at the many overreaches of the CIA, and significant reforms were put in place. I've been saying for some time, including on your program, there needs to be a Church Committee for the FBI, led probably by the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, which has done such good work under Senator Grassley from Iowa. Really has exposed this stuff in a way that nobody else has. We need national hearings on the overreaches of the FBI because it's an important agency, but it needs to be reined in.
I've heard from people inside DOJ, attorneys and people who know Pam Bondi, and they consistently say, look, in order to build an ironclad case, secure a grand jury, make the case that someone is worthy of being indicted, to make the case in court, we got to work very, very hard to make sure all our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, everything's buttoned up. We want to make sure we go forward with a ironclad case. Is that what you think is happening here? Because average folks like me sit out here very frustrated and wonder, where are the impaneled grand juries? Where are the indictments? Why is Comey the only one? I mean, Wray now may be implicated in this. Arctic frost, certainly. I mean, we know there are more than James Comey folks inside the FBI and DOJ that were involved in this kind of abuse. So Pam Bondi's role in all this is my question, Mark.
I cheered her nomination. I think she's more than qualified for the job. However, I have been troubled by some missteps by her that have hurt the movement. Now, to be fair, having worked at that level at the Justice Department, I do know this. Federal prosecutions and investigations typically move very slowly, much more slowly than the work we do in state prosecutions. And it's typically done under the radar. And so that's the norm at DOJ. It takes a long time, and it's not heard from until indictments are handed up from a grand jury. So I'd like to think that there is work being done that we don't know about that's going to bear fruit. But a lot of people who wanted to reverse some of the misuses of power that we saw in the last administration, a lot of us are waiting to see whether they're going to be corrected. And I don't know that Pam Bondi has enough credibility left with the people who put this president in the White House to be able to be quiet about this much longer.
How many people inside DOJ, like we found in Virginia, for instance, they had everything they needed, but there were people inside DOJ saying, no, there's nothing there. We're not going forward with this. This looks weak. This looks specious. This looks whatever. Institutionalists who were protecting Comey clearly. And it took President Trump basically getting angry to see a couple of people dismissed, someone new installed, to move forward to make the case that Comey should be indicted. Catherine Herridge reported there was a very solid case made against Comey, but there were institutionalists protecting him from them moving forward. So how real is that? How rampant is that? Does Bondi have to sift through a bunch of people who are trying to stymie President Trump and her objective?
Yeah, I was a young man when I was a Justice Department spokesman, and I was shocked, first of all, at how entrenched the Democratic Party is at the Justice Department. The career people tend to be Democrats. They tend to live in and around Washington, where there's a very Democratic feel. And then you take someone like Jim Comey, who was not only at the FBI, but remember, he was the number 2 official at the Justice Department as well. He was the Deputy Attorney General. And so in addition to many of the career people leaning to the left, many of them know each other and network with each other and are friends with one another outside of the job. And Comey's reach in that respect goes very far. I think he had a family member in the Eastern District U.S. Attorney's Office. I think it was a son-in-law who was one of the prosecutors there, who may have played a role in slowing down and then eventually resigned after the indictment was announced.
All right, well, let me take a break, if I may, and you were good enough to say you could stick around, because I want to pivot also to now what we're seeing in major cities like Chicago and Portland as judges are weighing in, mayors, governors, all warring against Trump, trying to restore some law and order in these cities, and where things will come down legally and constitutionally. More with Mark Weaver in just a minute. Thank you, Mark, for standing by. Hey, Paulie, give me number 76. Looking live at Atlanta, Georgia this morning. Thrilled to have you along. We're back with our buddy Mark Weaver. He is a constitutional professor. He's a doctor, an honorary doctor, you know. We don't just deal with riffraff here. We deal with highly degreed credentialed people here. So, Dr. Weaver, welcome back. Here is the Shoney's big boy who governs Illinois talking about President Trump sending in some of the National Guard to Chicago. Take a listen.
I refuse to let Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and Gregory Bovino continue on this march toward autocracy. Their plan all along has been to cause chaos, and then they can use that chaos to consolidate Donald Trump's power. They think they can fool us all into thinking that the way to get out of this crisis that they created is to give them free rein. Well, that plan will only work if we let it. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noem's thugs the hell out of Chicago. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid, and I won't back down.
Noem's thugs, federal law enforcement. The Justice Department has alleged a Chicago gang leader offered a $10,000 bounty to kill a Customs and Border Patrol officer. Any of them involved in Operation Midway Blitz, a gang member was offering $10,000 per kill. Chicago establishing ice-free zones. There's the Shoney's big boy Mark saying, I'm not afraid of these goons and these thugs. Of course, we saw what happened in Portland. One judge has weighed in out there. Where does this go legally, do you think?
Wow, that's breathtaking. I've seen other comments by this governor. Well, let's remember, it wasn't that long ago when many in America, including me, would have called Chicago one of America's greatest cities. It's not that anymore. The notion that federal law enforcement who are enforcing the law passed by a democratically elected majority in the Congress and signed into law by the president, the notion that the federal agents who are simply enforcing that law are thugs, when we all know that there are real thugs, violent criminal thugs who want to hurt people and kill them, steal from them, rape them, rob them. Those are the thugs. So the notion that a Democratic politician who's running for president, we know that, would somehow suggest that federal law enforcement officers are thugs. Every law enforcement officer in the country should remember those words from that governor.
Ultimately, when you have a judge that says you can't send Oregon's National Guard in to help protect, police, whatever you want to call it, calm Portland, and then they say, okay, we'll send in some Texas National Guard or California National Guard, and this makes the judge mad, and she said, no, you can't send any National Guard into Portland. Similarly, you have the mayor of Chicago saying, nope, we're not going to allow any staging areas used on city government turf. So no federal agents will be allowed to convene on schools or on City Hall or any kind of city-owned property. Pritzker there pledging. Again, legally, the Supreme Court's ultimately going to have to weigh in on this. They kind of did in L.A.'s case with the rioting there. So does the Supreme Court weigh in on this? And if so, where do they come down, do you think? Do they tell Trump, back off, you don't have the authority?
Well, I think it will eventually go to the Supreme Court, and I hope it does, because the Supreme Court is a co-equal branch with the presidency, and the Supreme Court ought to be listened to by everybody. But this hodgepodge of individual federal district court judges, what the Constitution calls inferior courts, making clearly political decisions, often with very poor or no good legal basis, is a troubling thing that we've not seen other than coming at Donald Trump. And I worry that when federal judges become so politicized that they undermine the rule of law and the respect for the rule of law. So back to the Senate and back to the House. Some of these federal judges need to be brought up on impeachment charges. The founders intended that the tools in the Constitution would be used when circumstances warranted. I don't think the founders thought that we should be afraid of using impeachment of federal judges. It's rarely done. It's done every 10 or 15 years at best. But at the very least, holding hearings and making judges come to Washington and explain themselves, even if they're not removed from office, has a salutary effect in that it brings transparency and accountability in a way we're not currently seeing.
It feels like Congress is kind of, I don't know if they're toothless, if they're lazy, if they're not willing. I don't know. People get kind of tired of the press conferences saying what we've found is outrageous. Somebody wants action. Everybody wants action. Everyone wants justice, Mark. So what would you say to people feeling, again, I feel like I ask you this at least every third month, to people in this audience, and I hear from them all the time, that just say they feel so frustrated. They hear these press conferences and then nothing. You say?
I think that the ultimate solution is always with the voter and putting the right people in office. Now, we don't have another election for Congress until next year. But between now and then, there are people who are running for that office, and they need to be closely questioned about what will they do to turn this around. For example, will you put articles of impeachment against federal judges who act outside their power as a district court judge? Yes or no? Give me an answer. Because those who will perhaps have a better chance of moving forward in Washington to bring about some of these reforms. For those who are there now, our listeners can call and email their senators and their members of Congress and ask them specifically to go on the record for official proceedings that will draw more public scrutiny to this. These members of Congress, and I've advised many of them over the years. I've known John Thune for 30 or 40 years. He and I worked together in South Dakota. They want to hear what people say, and they will stand up for
we are thrilled
for
to
the
hear
right
from
thing when
you
they
and
know
your
the people are
perspective
watching.
regularly, Mark. Thank you so much. Well, I don't know about you, but losing weight is one of those things I have been battling my entire life. Hi, it's Chris Stigall, and trying to keep it off once I've lost it instead of gaining it back, that's also been a very difficult thing. I decided I was going to try something new. I decided I was going to try my PhD weight loss. And I decided I was going to try it because I know personally colleagues and many listeners to the Salem Radio Network that have lost thousands of pounds of weight combined thanks to the My PhD Weight Loss program. So I'm going to call up Dr. Ashley Lucas and the team at My PhD Weight Loss. I'm going to get one of these personal nutrition coaches. I hope you'll join me in this weight loss journey. I hope very soon you and I will be able to brag about all the weight and inches we're losing off our waist. I'd just like to get a little weight off these knees, you know. I'm not getting any younger. It's going to be a lot easier to walk around a golf course this summer. Join me. MyPhDWeightLoss.com is the website, or 864-644-1900. 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Tell them Chris Stigall sent you, and good luck. Here we go. Biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you're not going to find anywhere else. My Pillow bed sheets, only $29.88, any color, any style, and any size, even the king size. Regularly priced at $119.98, now only $29.88. Once they're gone, though, they're gone for good. My towels are finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regularly priced at $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time, and the only time, get their limited edition premium My Pillows made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queens starting at $17.98, kings at $19.98, and for a limited time, when you order over $100, you'll receive free shipping plus $100 in free digital gifts. 800-932-5056, promo code Chris, or use that promo code at mypillow.com, promo code Chris. Good to have you along, folks. Welcome in. Looking live at Chicago this morning. The Shoney's big boy presiding over the state. You know, somebody asked me an interesting question, one that I would love an answer to, and there is no good answer, of course, because the answer is no. If the Shoney's big boy says you can't send troops, federal troops, into my state or into my city to get control, I have total sovereignty here. I have state sovereignty. The question was, if a governor can declare their state immune from federal enforcement of immigration law, why can't they then just say, well, we're not going to collect taxes? Why couldn't they be a tax-free zone? Can a governor say, I'm no longer going to collect federal income taxes, or I'm going to allow my residents to not pay federal income taxes if they live here in my state? Can a governor say that? It's a great question. And one, I guess I'll just volley. And you can send me a thought if you'd like over there on X or email or whatever you'd like at chrisstigall.com. Glad to have you along. Always glad to have my friend John Hayward, National Security Deputy Editor at Breitbart. He's on X, and you should follow him there because he always writes brilliantly wherever you read him, either at Breitbart or on X. Dr_0. And the O in zero is the actual digit 0. Dr_0. Hey, John, good to have you back on this second anniversary of that terrorist attack that it seems a lot domestically now want to conveniently forget even happened. The whole predicate for the conflict we're in 2 years later was that heinous event, and we know that Hamas and a lot of their proxies and people that are affiliated have been waging an information war and a PR campaign to try to convince certainly the West, Americans, that Israel's the aggressor some 2 years after that heinous attack. So where do things stand today in your view?
Well, it's rather fraught. That information war you're talking about was waged with the help of the United Nations. The UN Special Rapporteur to the Palestinians came out today and gave a death figure for the number of children Israel has supposedly killed that's more than all the children that were alive in Gaza. And she said it with a straight face, just thinking nobody was going to double check or question whether that number was unrealistic. So the Hamas has had a lot of help from the international community. A lot of friends have been stepping in to help them. And look at how much worse our politics has gotten since October 7th. This was not just an event for Israel. A lot of the domestic violence we're seeing in America, political violence from the left, absolutely has its roots in October 7th and in the backlash to it. All those campus protests for Hamas, all all those kids wearing keffiyehs and locking Jews out of their classrooms on college campuses, that was a huge wave of thuggish energy that has now completely infused the left. In a lot of ways, the American left is looking at Hamas and seeing a role model. Why can't we do what they did too?
There are, and again, I'm trying not to give a lot of oxygen to it. I mean, not that they need my help, but there are prominent people with prominent followings who are now building their shows and filling their followers full of the notion Israel's not only a bad faith actor, but now going as far as maybe even suggesting they were responsible for murdering Charlie Kirk. I mean, that's how bananas it's getting, and I mean, there are millions of people listening to that daily. What do we do with that culturally?
Well, you push back against it as best you can. You try to tell the truth. We don't have, speech laws that shut people up. And look at what's happening in England. You don't want them. You don't want the government Ministry of Truth throwing you in jail for saying the wrong thing online. So all you can do is push back by telling the truth as loudly as you possibly can. Those people you're talking about are making such a cynical effort to find an audience outside of their normal circles by throwing out some red meat they know the left will respond to and trying to usher in the campus protesters, the keffiyeh crowd, to their shows as well to build an audience. It's very cynical and it's monstrous, but that is part of the price you pay for having free speech. People can do things like that, and all you can do is speak back.
So in the money-making era of clicks and downloads, the strategy is bring in a lot of angry leftists on a thing that they think they can comfortably side with them on, not talking notably. Yeah. And you'll notice, by the way, that these same shows that once fancied themselves as conservatives no longer talk about conservative agenda items whatsoever. They don't talk about spending. They don't talk about law enforcement. They don't talk about anything but Israel. Almost round the clock. It's a cynical money play, a download click play, bringing in new ears and eyes from the left.
Yeah, and there are people on the right, too, that have always thought Israel had too much influence over American politics. They worry that Israel will drag us into a war. So there's always been a bit of a strain on the right that they could appeal to as well. And these people are seeing a ripe opportunity, like a steak they can carve, to get a nice hunk of meat by looking at a place where those audiences intersect. And they can offer them something that will get the rage clickers of everybody along, on top of which it is a brutal war in Gaza. It's been a hard fight. Israel's taken a lot of casualties in fighting this war. It's urban combat. There's a lot of civilians in the way. That's how Hamas likes it. So it's very easy to say this is a terrible war. We'd all agree with that. I'm sure Netanyahu would agree with that. But then from there, they go in the direction of blaming the victims for the war, and that means they lose sight of what started it. And today, October 7th, is a great time to remember what started it. The core operating principle of terrorism is always to make the victim responsible for the violence. We had to do this to you. You left us no choice. It's all your fault. The war is all your fault. Every terrorist does that. Left-wing political terrorists in America are doing that today with Charlie Kirk. That's how all terrorism operates. It's the core principle of it. And today, October 7th, is a great day to remember what actually happened on that day and what Hamas actually did. And it is monstrous beyond description.
And radical Islam that motivates it. Jihadists, Sharia law, if you want, all of it kind of part and parcel of the same mess. John, here's my overly simplistic brain, and you tell me, because you're smart and not overly simplistic. If you're asking me to choose, even if I really wasn't particularly fond of Israel, even if I really didn't like Benjamin Netanyahu or the government of Israel, if you're asking me to choose between radical Islamists governing and running roughshod over the region, or Israel and the nation of Israel, the government of Israel, holding firm and battling that back and annihilating it if possible, I choose the latter. I don't want radical Islam in any form or fashion, anywhere. Not in Nigeria, not in Dearborn, Michigan, not in Gaza. Is that overly simplistic?
No, that's exactly right. And that should have been the civilized world's joint response to October 7th. It's amazing and horrifying that Hamas has so much support at the UN, not just from Islamic states, but from other countries as well, when the world's unified response to October 7th should have been the people who did this need to surrender right now. And if they don't, everything that happens is on them. And they should have been shoulder to shoulder with Israel in prosecuting this war and exterminating barbarism. They didn't. They didn't do that. A lot of them sided with Hamas. And so now you're not talking about a civilized response to barbarism. You're talking about a negotiation. You have people that say we need to listen to Hamas's grievances, and maybe the answer is to give them a state, that disgusting spectacle at the United Nations. Let's just give them a state. That'll make everything okay. We'll give them some of their grievances, and maybe they won't murder any more music festivals if we're super nice to them. That is not the answer to barbarism. It can never be the answer to barbarism.
I'm going to hold you over if I could, because you've written plenty more about much more going on, and I want to get to that. But let me ask you about this. Now, 2 years in, the president's drafted a 20-point agreement to a ceasefire. Israel signed off on it. Hamas says they agree to tenets of it. I mean, how optimistic are you that Hamas would ever adhere to a ceasefire anyway? And how close are we to it, if at all?
The best thing this deal has going for it is that Trump got a lot of buy-in from Arab countries that support Hamas. Iran said they approve of the deal. So with that kind of pressure, it's a little different than it's ever been since October 7th, since the attacks. But I'm still not sanguine this is going to happen. Hamas always finds a way to throw in poison pills and sabotage every negotiation. And then their loyal followers in America run around and scream peace, ceasefire now again, like it wasn't their fault. So I'm sure they'll try to find a way to scuttle this deal. But I think it has better chance of going through than anything else we've seen so far.
And do you think President Trump has to back off rhetoric like, if Hamas doesn't come to the table, Israel's free to do what it has to do? Do you think he's feeling political pressure to stop talking quite like that?
He probably is, but it is the right thing to say. That is the alternative, and everybody has to understand that. If they won't make this deal, if they won't take this last chance, then yes, they have to be annihilated, and everything that happens from that point forward is on them.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm not sure why that's hard. And again, anybody that thinks playing patty cake with Islamists, John, is going to end well for a non-Islamist is kidding themselves. I mean, you can feel whatever you want to feel, whatever bigotry you feel for Jews. Islamists will slit your throat, folks. Does everybody get that, John?
Yeah, I don't think they do, but they need to understand it. It's a virulent ideology. Not all Muslims hold to it, but when you have Islamism creeping into the discussion, you're putting violence, which they think is righteous violence, on the table, and they will not relinquish their right to commit that violence.
Yeah, and none of these people that are, supposed conservatives who rose to prominence with Turning Point or on Fox News, none of them are talking about slaughtered Christians in Nigeria. None of them are talking about Sharia law in places like Dearborn, Michigan, John. And we'll lose the culture if they don't.
About that. I know. I write articles about the Christians being slaughtered constantly. I'm the only one.
Which is why we turn to John Hayward, and we will continue this conversation on much more in just a moment. There is a new leader in Japan. President Trump congratulated her. Japan has just elected its first female prime minister, a highly respected person of great wisdom and strength. This is tremendous news for the incredible people of Japan. Congratulations to all, said President Trump on Truth Social. On X, the newly elected leader responded. Her name, I'll let John Hayward pronounce, since he's written extensively about her already. Good morning, John. Welcome back to you. Who is this, and why is she important to us?
Her name is Takaichi Sene, and she is probably going to be the new prime minister of Japan, the first female prime minister they've ever had. It's not a done deal. Some things could go wrong, but it's 90% likely that she'll be the prime minister. And she is known in Japan as their Iron Lady, after Margaret Thatcher, because she idolizes Margaret Thatcher. She even dresses like her from time to time. So she's very conservative. She's very anti-illegal immigration. She wants immigration controls. She's in touch with populism in Japan and around the world. And that's the big story the media doesn't really like telling you. There is this rising tide of populism across the Western world, and a great deal of it is pushback against mass migration, illegal immigration, enforced cultural change. People in these countries are saying, this is our country, and we may welcome immigrants, but we're not yielding our national identity to them. And that is a big concern in Japan right now. There's a big controversy brewing there about plans to bring in huge numbers of African migrants to replace all the Japanese who aren't being born. They're in a demographic collapse, and people in Japan are nervous they're going to go the way of the United Kingdom if their leaders have anything to say about it. And Takaichi Sene ran against that and said, nope, not going to let that happen. I'll protect you. And she won. She's got a lot of popular backing.
What do you think? You just said something about the population collapse in Japan. We know that our birthing rates are low here in the United States. We know that's the case in the UK. What is that? I've stumbled into something I'm sure far bigger than we have time to discuss. But what's going on in civilized Western societies that populations are declining? Is it because we're all kind of relatively fat and happy and we'd rather just cash checks than make babies?
It's low birth rates, and I think, I don't see this bandied about a lot by the experts, but I think the reason is that the cost of motherhood, the opportunity cost of motherhood, has gone up so much. Not just the cost of raising the baby or going to the hospital, but what you have to give up as a young person to begin having children. As a young woman at a young age, you have to give up your career, your education, you have to make sacrifices. And in industrialized nations, the value of those sacrifices that are being made is so high that a lot of young people say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get my career done first. I'm going to be successful. I'll find the perfect man. We'll get married. And maybe in my 40s, I'll have a child. You can't sustain a population that way. And you don't have a chance of sustaining your population or your national integrity when you bring in populations that don't do that. And they do have children at a young age, and they have healthy demographic growth. And the biggest story in the world is that all of the world's advanced societies, including communist China, which basically tried ordering women to have more babies, and it didn't work. Every advanced society in the world is facing demographic collapse because they just don't have enough children. You have to start young, and you need a lot of people that have more than 2 children to keep a population healthy, and most Western societies are just not doing it.
I'm going to talk more with Steve Moore about this from an economics point of view, but I'm sorry, I'm going a place I didn't intend, but you're smart enough to pivot with me here on AI and the projection from government officials that you could see millions of jobs in the next decade, millions, tens of millions of jobs replaced by artificial intelligence in the next decade. What does that do, and what does that do to the conversation you were just having with us?
Well, in one way, it dovetails with population collapse. If you're not having young workers and young people are not being born, you're going to have to turn to automation, machines. AI is a force multiplier that makes people much more productive when they use it. So you're going to have a smaller number of people getting a lot more done. And that may help you adjust to the downward curve of your population a little bit in productivity, at least at first. But it's really going to hurt you in the long run. Because one thing I can tell you for certain about AIs is that they don't pay taxes, and they never will. You can't replace your tax base of young workers with computers, machines, and intelligent software because you can't tax it. So you're never going to have the benefits you need to pay for your older generation. Every demographically collapsing country in the world is heading into a death spiral of social spending it can't afford, including China, again, which is very aware that it has this problem and is trying to stop it.
You mentioned China. I don't want to cram this, but we're going to have to for time's sake. You write about India doing business, restoring some flights with China, as well as continuing to buy Russian oil. What do we do with India? They're a real linchpin to this whole thing with both Russia and China, and they're playing ball with both of them, yes?
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. India is dancing a very precise dance between us and the Russia-Chinese axis. Russia, China, and Iran are building an axis of tyranny, of authoritarianism. And India is clearly signaling we might join that. We have options. We get a lot of stuff from Russia. We don't want to mess up our relationship with them. We can even make nice with China, which has been our bitter rivals for many years now in pursuit of common interests. And then India turns to America and says, what will you give us to not do this? It's very shrewd on their part. They're negotiating very well from their perspective. And they also take the time to let Russia know we have alternatives. We could buy American oil. We don't have to buy yours. We can make do with less. So you'd better keep those discounts coming, Russia, and you'd better keep working to keep our friendship. They're in kind of a good place to be if you're trying to get everybody to bid for your friendship. But eventually they're going to have to decide which side they're on, because the line between the axis of authoritarianism and the free world is going to become much more stark in the next 20 years or so.
John Hayward is the fantastic, brilliant read. Every time he writes, you must pick up what he reads. If you don't, go to Breitbart and read. He is the National Security Deputy Editor there. He is Dr._0, with the O in zero being the digit. Always good to see you, John. Thank you, my friend. You know, the last time we had a shutdown, well, I don't know that it was the last time. One of the more recent times, I remember Barack Obama took bike racks, and he literally tried to keep people from walking into open memorial spaces we were just looking live on the Salem News Channel. If you don't have the app, grab it and you can watch what I watch every day. But thanks for listening on great radio stations all over the country, like AM 570 and in Washington, D.C. But you remember when Obama took bike racks and tried to keep people from walking? Like veterans, on honor flights were flying into D.C. to see the World War II memorial. And he took bike racks to keep people from going to open air spaces just to make a point. Remember that? Steve Moore remembers it. He's our chief economist. We talk with him every Tuesday. Committee to Unleash Prosperity, former Trump White House economist, author of a book that Trump signed off on personally called The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. Steve-O, you remember the bike rack days? Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. As you know, I live in the swamp, and so I remember, I think I've lived through about 15 of these shutdowns, but I do remember when Obama put all the railings and bike racks and even cement blocks so that people couldn't see the memorials, and in the parks as well. We have several national parks around this area, and they're doing that again. By the way, they're doing that again.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah. So you can't. We went to it was a beautiful, beautiful weekend this past weekend in D.C., and so we had a lot of people coming in from around the country and around the world. And what's the point of not letting people go into a big national park?
There's nothing to go into, right? There's nothing to pay. I mean, there's no. I suppose maybe picking up trash. That's the only thing I can think of.
See, the problem is if you want to, for some of these, you have to drive there. Oh, we're lucky; we live right by a park. But if you have to drive there, they've shut down all the parking lots and all that kind of thing to make it, as impossible as they possibly can to so that you can't enjoy these national jewels. Stupidity.
Okay. Yeah, but here we are, and I don't know. Are Republicans going to budge here? We talked yesterday about health insurance. The Obamacare subsidy is the big deal. Yeah. Democrats want to maintain subsidies for Obamacare here is what this is really about, isn't it?
It is. So I wrote my weekly column on this this morning before I came on your show. So this is a hot topic for me. So first of all, let's rewind in time for a minute, Chris. Remember when Obamacare was being debated? What was that, about 15 years ago? And oh my God, this is going to lower the cost of health care for everybody, and it's going to be. Remember what they called that bill? Do you remember what it was called? The Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
The Affordable
Ironic,
Care
right?
Act. Folks, raise your hand if you think healthcare is affordable today. The insurance premiums just went up by another 9%, sorry, according to the Wall Street Journal. So the costs keep going up and up and up and up. And I don't think the quality of the care is much better. So what was this all about? What we did with Obamacare, and you know this, Chris, you and I talked about this when they were debating it. It was just moving the system out of the private sector into the government. So now taxpayers are paying a much larger share of the bill. It's not healthcare is less expensive. It's just who's paying for it. And when you're running a $37 trillion debt and a $2 trillion annual deficit, what the Democrats are saying is they want to move more and more and more people into Obamacare, into these subsidized plans. We just can't afford it. We're losing $2 trillion.
Meanwhile, here's a story today, and I wanted your take on it because I thought it was an interesting one. From Fox Business, headline, the U.S. economy saw, quote, essentially no job growth last month from Moody's. Leading economist warning that job creation in the U.S. economy is slowing to a crawl as the ongoing government shutdown precluded the release of the September jobs report last week. What say you about slow to no job growth last month by Moody's?
Yeah, well, job growth has definitely slowed, no question about it. And a lot of this, I think the primary factor here has been demographics that, we now have. I just turned 65, as you know, Chris, so I'm getting old. You see my gray hair. And so every day in America, 11,000 Americans on average are retiring. As the baby boomers get old, we knew this moment was coming, right? And only 8,000 or so Americans are entering the workforce because there are fewer young people than there are old people. And so this is just math. I think we're going to have a hard time. In fact, a lot of the reduction in employment or at least the flat employment, is not due to the fact that there aren't jobs out there. There are businesses that are doing well. Look at business profits. Look at the stock market. It's doing really well. It's just that there are fewer and fewer workers available to fill these jobs. And not just that, Chris. It's another problem you and I have talked about over the years, is that there are a lot of people who are looking for work. I know there are people out there looking for work who can't find a job, but guess what? They don't have the skills to do it because they've got a sociology degree or a gender studies degree or something that is worthless in the market. And that's a shame that these universities are churning out kids that can't do anything.
Yeah, or there are a lot of people who are able-bodied and willing to work who don't have a degree, and we still have this antiquated system where a lot of companies that shouldn't care about that nonsense start training people without degrees to do the work they need instead of saying, nope, we're passing on you because you don't have the stupid paper. I think we need to break that system personally.
I entirely agree with you on that. I think that, somehow because you have a piece of paper that says you graduated from a college, I mean, give me somebody who's a hardworking person who's smart, who really wants to succeed. And,
Yes.
That's businesses train people. That's what they do. And so the worst thing, by the way, we have a problem in America, I think, in that we're discouraging young people. I've said this 100 times on your show, but I think it's so terrible. We need younger people to start working earlier in their life, because the statistics are very clear on this, folks. The younger your child starts working, the more successful they will be in their life.
The headline from Axios, and we were just talking about this with John Hayward, Steve Moore, our chief economist. Here we go. AI could erase 100 million U.S. jobs, a Senate Democrat report finds. As Washington debates how to regulate artificial intelligence, Democrats centering on the potential devastation for American workers. A chat GPT-based analysis from Democrats on the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee found AI could wipe out swaths of both white and blue-collar jobs. The report warns of the rise of artificial labor, says it could reshape the economy in less than a decade. Too dramatic? Untrue? How do you read that?
Oh, robotics is coming very rapidly. I think I've mentioned to you that I'm on the board of a company called Lightspeed, and we build houses with robots. In California and other areas out west already, a lot of the Uber drivers and cars and the Lyft cars are automated. There's nobody driving them. So yes, it is absolutely true that the way we work is going to change very dramatically over the next 5 or 10 years. Trucking jobs in 10 years will probably not really exist because the trucks will be automated. But look, we've been through this 1,000 times. We went through this with the Industrial Revolution. We went through this 100 years ago when we invented farm tractors, and it used to be 30 out of every Americans were working in agriculture, and we eliminated millions and millions of back-breaking jobs of people having to pick the fruits and vegetables in the fields with tractors. This is called progress. It's progress, and it means that the jobs we did before that were oftentimes mundane and backbreaking are going to be traded in for jobs that are more interesting, where you're using the muscle between your ears in your intelligence and your creativity, not how much you can lift.
From the Daily Signal, the Department of Labor announcing more than $86 million in grants for employers to provide training in high-demand and emerging industries. Donald Trump has directed the Labor Department to, quote, make America skilled again by providing states with the resources they need to expand on-the-job training opportunities. The department awarded grants to 14 states to accelerate innovation, strengthen domestic production, and address critical workforce needs. This is something the president believes in, too, bringing business back to the country. He sees this coming down the pike, I'm sure, as clear as anybody does. He's been warned about it. Is that what he's trying to do? Create more commerce and more jobs with this anticipation of AI slaughtering so much of the workforce?
Well, that's what he's trying to do. Absolutely. I want people to realize, though, this is called economic progress. This means the drudgery of work will go away. We won't have to work as long hours because machines will do a lot of that work for us. It used to be 60, work week was 60 hours a week. And now because of technology, it's less than 40 hours a week. So these are positive trends. They will cause some adjustment problems, no question about it. But I think the idea, here's the problem I have with what you just read, Chris. Yeah, I think it is a good thing that Trump wants to get the workers ready for the jobs of the future. Why aren't the schools doing that? Why aren't the universities doing that? Why aren't the colleges doing that? We spend $1 trillion a year on this stuff. And what the hell are the schools doing? Teaching, about, I don't know, gender equity issues and things like that have nothing to do with really getting our workers, ready for science. We need more people in science, technology, engineering, mechanics, the STEM jobs. There's a huge shortage of Americans who can do those jobs.
Frank Bisignano, I don't know how to say this name. Who is this? Scott Besson, our Treasury Secretary, has appointed this guy to run, who runs the Social Security Administration, to also head up the IRS. Who is he? Why does he matter to us? Is he good?
This is just announced, and I just sent out a tweet on that. I don't know if you were reading my tweet because we just sent it out, but in any case, this is good news. I think we've had 4 or 5 heads of the IRS under Trump in his first, 9 months in office. But this guy is a financial expert. He's absolutely perfect for the job. He helped turn around the bureaucracy at the Social Security Administration. And, we've got to get rid of a lot of the Biden people who use the IRS. I mean, they weaponized it. You know this, Chris. They weaponized the IRS. They went after people who were conservative, just like Obama did. That is outrageous. By the way, I was a victim of that personally. We were getting audited all of the time because I was a public figure, and my crime was I was a Trump supporter. So this weaponization of the IRS, hopefully that will end under Donald Trump, and it will have one goal, and that is to make sure people are paying the taxes they owe, but not using it as a political tool to go after enemies.
President Trump is flirted with. He continues to entertain the idea of maybe doing away with the tax altogether from the IRS. I mean, is that even achievable, or is he just saying that to say it because it's something we would all like to daydream, not paying that federal income tax?
A little of both. I mean, it is achievable. We could do it. I mean, I want to remind your viewers and listeners, Chris, that it wasn't
about
until
20 seconds, Steve-O, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you.
It wasn't until 1913 we had an income tax. So, for the first 150 or at least 100 years of our country, there was no income tax. We can replace the income tax with tariffs and a national sales tax. And then April 15 would be a wonderful spring day, and we wouldn't have to hand over all our financial records to the United States government.
Dare to dream, Steve Moore. Committee to Unleash Prosperity. Get his free newsletter every single day from the Committee to Unleash Prosperity. It's called The Hotline, at Stephen Moore on X. Thank you, Steve-O. We'll see you next Tuesday. Appreciate you.
Chris, have a great week.
You know what? I could get excited about Japan. If they're about to elect a Margaret Thatcher-esque prime minister in Japan. She's apparently like an acolyte of Thatcher, dresses like her and everything. Trump congratulated her. New prime minister of Japan. We're looking live at Tokyo this morning. And if you're watching on the Salem News Channel with us, welcome aboard. Thank you for choosing us. Thanks for getting that app. Thanks for watching on Samsung Plus or Roku or wherever you watch. If you're listening on great radio stations all over the country, and I suppose around the world, in fact, I think we do have. I think I just got an email not too terribly long ago from someone who watches on their Samsung Plus television in Japan every day. Anyway, however you get the show, including our podcast, so glad to have you along. Thank you very much. From the Free Beacon today, Qatar, or Gutter, however you want to sound about it. I think different people on cable news use it differently to make themselves sound more or less sophisticated. I don't know. I liked Qatar. I always liked Qatar. Like the bug spray. But I've even heard people give it a G sound. Gutter, Eddie. That makes people sound really authentically Middle Eastern. Gutter. Like you've almost got something stuck in your throat. That makes you sound really authentic.
I mean, Qatar sounds very literal, but what happened to Qatar? I like Qatar, like Qatari Airways,
Like a guitar, Qatar.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Qatar, Qatar, gutter, however you like to say it. Anyway, Donald Trump is pushing them to knock off their pro-Hamas rhetoric courtesy of Al Jazeera. And by the way, if you think it's only courtesy of Al Jazeera, what's going on at Al Jazeera? If you go inside its website, you'll see relatively mild news items as opposed to the incitement that is usually prominent on the Qatari propaganda network. Israel's Channel 12 journalist Amit Stigall reported in an X post. Stigall went on to cite his colleague who said Qatar is carrying out a purge at Al Jazeera and said that the network has started to focus more on the humanitarian situation in Gaza instead of praising and boasting about the actions of Hamas military wing. Al Jazeera's shift, it was noted, is apparently part of understandings between Qatar and the United States under which Al Jazeera will reduce the amount of incitement it spreads through the Middle East. Folks, I just want to say something, and I'm not going to belabor this. I think most people are sophisticated enough to understand this and know what's going on. There is just some really rancid stuff going on beyond what is typical on social media. X in particular is just a wash, and I don't think it's exclusive to X, certainly. TikTok is dealing with it as well, and Meta to a degree, although it's a little more controlled, at least what I see. But X is just a cesspool. Josh Hammer, our guest yesterday, his name, Fast Eddie, was invoked by a prominent talk show host and you're going to have to follow me on this, and I'm paraphrasing.
All right.
But this person alleges that Josh Hammer is part of a cabal with pro-Israel people who were pressuring Charlie to embrace Israel, and Charlie was getting very, very close to just saying, screw it, I don't want anything to do with Israel, I want nothing to do with any of you people. And Charlie was planning on hiring this person who's saying all these things back to Turning Point, and then he was killed. So this person is now doing a show telling their vast audience that Charlie was murdered because of his waning support for Israel and his interest in perhaps bringing her back into the organization known as Turning Point. This is now how she's built a show and an audience. And I will tell you, to great effect, Josh Hammer on this show yesterday, I posted some of the clips of his appearance on this show on X. I have never seen such vile, disgusting response to it in my life, and it was all because yesterday this individual invoked Josh Hammer's name as being one of the people supposedly deceiving Charlie about Israel and his inner circle. So we'll have to have Josh back, by the way, to answer that specifically, but it was sort of interesting on the same day Josh was here. This person invokes his name specifically, and look, here's how I'll take it. She basically said that Josh and people affiliated with Josh were pressuring Charlie, and because Charlie was not willing to bend to their pressure, he was murdered. Okay, that's what I'm going to tell you, Ed. That's basically what this person asserted. And because of that, some of the most vile, and I mean vile, anti-Semitic stuff I've ever read came flooding into my X feed yesterday. Really rancid stuff.
Yeah. No, but we've known about this for a long time, and it's a problem that we're going to have to face within our own party, man. It's not getting any better.
John Hayward said it earlier, and you should just know, look, you're smart, you're sophisticated. I'm not in the business of telling anybody anything. You listen to what you want to listen to. You feel and think whatever you want to feel and think. But again, there is nothing about shows like mine anyway, this show. I'm completely transparent with you. You know exactly where every nickel of my money comes from because I talk about every one of my sponsors, every one of them. The only way we make money is the company that pays me, and the only way the company that pays me makes money is if the sponsors that buy ad time here sell their product. These people that are selling you this bill of goods are not telling you where their money comes from, but they have a lot of it, and I would start asking that question. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.